The Connecticut Sun reports surfaced over the weekend that they would be relocated to Boston with new ownership that included one of the minority owners of the Boston Celtics. We saw with the WNBA going to TD Garden twice in the last calendar year. The arena sold out. Clearly an appetite for women's basketball professionally in Beantown. But now this news report that's come out from Front Office Sports over the last hour or so, reportedly, according to Annie Costabile, apparently, while yes, there was a deal between the Mohegan tribe, who have owned the Connecticut Sun since they relocated the Orlando Dream in 2003, there was a deal between they and the ownership from the Boston Celtics. Kathy Engelbert was known to, she had some conversations with this group, knew that this handshake agreement was in place. But this proposal was never brought to the WNBA Board of Governors, who all the while were preaching that if you want to get a WNBA franchise in your city through expansion, then you need to go through the expansion process. That, of course, resulted in $250 million bids awarded to the cities of Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia here in this last 3-month cycle. And if anything, Kathy Engelbert is on the record saying Houston is next. And now Boston could be cutting the line by essentially circumventing the system and going through the Mohegan tribe to directly buy a currently existing franchise. All the while, the commissioner knew about it and didn't bring it to the Board of Governors, Mitch, which is my bigger question about this whole situation as compared to, will the Connecticut Sun actually end up playing in Boston come 2027? What say you?
I think my read on this is that if Kathy Engelbert wants this to happen, I guess my thing is I don't see why the Board of Governors wouldn't approve this sale. I mean, if you're Kathy Engelbert or you're anybody who has a stake in the WNBA, I think you just kind of look at the landscape and you kind of fast forward to 2030, right, where you're going to have teams in Toronto, Philly, Brooklyn, and potentially Boston. All right, so now you kind of have that Northeast market covered that has all the other major sports pretty much in it. Toronto and Philly and New York and Boston, they all have NBA teams, they all have MLB teams, all of NFL teams except for Toronto, but Buffalo's not far. I don't think there's I don't see any motivation on why the Board of Governors would fight to keep this team in Connecticut. So I assume that this is going to happen, that this team will be sold to the owner of the Boston Celtics, who comes with, deep pockets and is reportedly going to pay, what's the price, $350 million?
Yes, and that includes $110 million for a practice facility, $325 million offer. That's from Celtics minority owner Steve Pagliuca, and then a future $110 million investment into a practice facility.
Yeah. I think this is going to happen. I think that, the person that initially reported this was Gary Washburn at the Boston Globe, who's incredibly well sourced there with the Celtics. I was reading the Front Office Sports story from Annie, and I found this kind of interesting, this paragraph. The WNBA has the power to force a sale to a Connecticut-based buyer, in which case the Mohegan tribe would cooperate, according to the Boston Globe. So that's interesting to me. I just don't think that there is motivation for the WNBA to do that. I know that maybe in theory, it sounds like a good idea to have a team in Connecticut because of UConn and because ESPN is right there and all the things, right? But that's at the expense of not having a team in Boston, which is a major media market. Those games that have been at TD Garden that the Sun have played there have been very well attended. And if you're the Mohegan tribe, old boys coming to you with $350 million or whatever that price is.
And you bought the team for $10 million in 2003.
Right. You're trying to cash out and get paid. I think this is probably going to happen. It is a bit of a bummer for, the Sun fans and the people that live in Connecticut. I've been to that arena for college games, and it's a good arena. It's a little weird because it is inside of a casino. So there's that aspect of it. I just think that if the WNBA board of governors, if the people that are basically in charge of kind of directing this league one way or the other, you're talking about Kathy and the board of governors. I got to think that they're all going to be on board to have a team in Boston.
So, yeah, here's the interesting part that Annie reported. Again, this is according to Annie Costabile with Front Office Sports, that now that the 1 month, I guess, grace period has passed from when this minority owner of the Celtics and the Mohegan tribe had a handshake agreement, essentially now other groups could get involved. And so reportedly, Milwaukee Bucks former owner Mark Lassery is leading one of the interested groups that would want to keep the team in Connecticut. To your point, I don't know really why you would want to keep the team in Connecticut. The president of the Connecticut Sun, Jen Rosati, spoke with reporters on Sunday, and she said, I can't speak to where the team is going to go, but if Boston was an option, it's hard to argue that they're not a city that's viable for a WNBA franchise. That's the president of the team. Again, she could have a new boss here in a few weeks' time, but ultimately hearing that from her, for me, validates exactly what you're saying. And even if this Bucks-led group was to actually get the bid, I don't know why they would keep a team in Uncasville when they could literally be bringing a team to Boston where, yes, maybe concession prices are higher, rent is higher, but also the opportunity to grow the brand is also higher.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a Connecticut fan and like if you're somebody who is like, rooting for Lassery to buy the team instead, I would be a little cautious about that and, make sure that like it is written in the agreement of sale that you cannot move this team out of the state of Connecticut. Mark Lassery, I don't think he has any real connections to the state of Connecticut. And I see no reason why he would want to keep the team there either. Mark Lassery tried to actually buy the North Carolina Courage, the NWSL team, last year or the year before. And that sale, I believe, because he was using some private equity, was not approved by the NWSL's board of governors. But I think there were a lot of signs that pointed to, if that sale happened, that he might move the team. So now where would he move the team to? I don't know. Milwaukee, is Milwaukee a soccer city? I'm not really sure. Does Milwaukee need a WNBA team? I don't know. You have one, in Chicago, you have one in Indiana. Do you need to put another, team in the Midwest there? But yeah, I think that, the other thing is the WNBA likes to kind of, for lack of a better term, like get in bed with people who are in the NBA or in the NFL and, have deep pockets and are, well-established people with deep funding, so they don't have situations like they had in the mid-2000s and, in the younger years of this league where franchises were folding and people were upset about, not filling seats and not making money and that sort of thing. So if you can sign the owner of the Boston Celtics up, I think that the WNBA would be very interested in doing that and would do whatever they could to make that happen.